Welcome again. My name is Benjamin Williams, and I'm the minister for the Central Church of Christ in Ada, Oklahoma. And this series of lessons is called Apprentice to Jesus, a series on discipleship and what it means to be a disciple. And today's lesson is exactly that. What is a disciple? A lot of times we ask the wrong question. We say, what is a Christian? That's a good question, but it may not be the first question we need to ask. A Christian is a disciple of Jesus. So what's a disciple? What does that mean? In our modern world, we don't use the word disciple a lot, except probably in sermons and in churches. What we need to think of is a disciple is something like an apprentice. The word literally in Greek language that we translate the New Testament out of means a learner or a student. But it's more than a student in the modern sense, where you go and you take a class and you read a book and then you know something. The ancient learner was expected to live with his teacher, to follow him around, to study with him, and to spend a large amount of time with him, to watch how he lived and how he worked and how he did things. And I think the closest you can get to that in the modern world would be the idea of an apprentice. At a lot of vocational schools, there's still the idea of an internship or externship, where as part of your education, they send you into the field to work in a particular area and to gain expertise, because there's some things you only learn by standing next to somebody who knows what they're doing. That idea is really at its core what Christian discipleship is about. The original disciples of Jesus got to follow him around Judea and Galilee and listen to him, but also watch him and to see how he behaved. As Christians, we're trying to do the same thing, only through distance learning. Distance not through geography, but through time. We're trying to sit at the feet of Jesus and be his apprentice, and to listen and to learn and to watch. Because of the distance, because Jesus isn't literally here in the room with me and I can watch him do things, we need a strategy for that. A few years back, I developed a strategy that became helpful to me of how to grow as a disciple. And I've been thinking about it for some time since, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't come up with anything better. It's just a simple 3-step idea that really works for me, and we're going to spend the next 3 lessons investigating these 3 concepts of how to become a disciple of Christ and how to grow as a disciple of Christ, how to be apprenticed to Jesus. And I would describe these 3 steps as belong, learn, and serve. Belong, learn, and serve. And let me spend just a little bit before we talk about each one in future lessons. Let me explain now, in brief, what each of those terms mean and how they're derived from the Gospel of Matthew. In Matthew chapter 12, verses 46 and 49, speaking of Jesus, it says, while he was still speaking to the people, behold, his mother and his brother stood outside, asking to speak to him. But he replied to the man who told him, who is my mother and who are my brothers? And stretching out his hand toward his disciples, he said, here are my mother and my brothers. So the story is that Jesus is out with a group of people that he's teaching, and his literal biological family, brothers and mother, show up and want to see him. And Jesus takes this opportunity to point to his students, his disciples, his apprentices, and to say, this is my family. Disciples of Jesus are those who do the will of God together as a family. There's a sense of belonging, that I am now part of this little cohort of people, that I'm now one of these folks. I'm now one of these people. And the first step of discipleship, in my mind, is to begin to belong in this new community of people. In the same way, if you go to a school, you become one with the other students in the group that move along the program with you. You get to know them well, and you complain about the teachers together and other things. We shouldn't do that about Jesus, but you get my point. That we learn to belong to a group of learners. And basically, that's what the church is. The church is the little family, the little cohort of learners, of disciples, who are trying to do this together. And we're meant to do it together. Literally, and I mean this in the most serious way possible, the first step in Christian discipleship is to show up, to just be there, and to learn how to belong to this group of people. You don't understand everything. To be honest, at the beginning, you don't understand anything. You're not doing it right. Of course you're not. You're a learner. But you're in the right place, and you start belonging to that group. And that sense of belonging and connection and relationship grows. And long before you understand what Christianity is about, you find yourself in the right place, in the place where people are learning about Jesus. So to me, the first step of discipleship and growing in it is just being in the right place and being around the right people, belonging as a family. A second step comes from Matthew 11:28 through 30. Jesus says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden light." Jesus wants to share the load of life's journey with us. He uses the word yoke there, and modern people don't know a lot about the yoke of the agricultural world. But you could take a strong animal and yoke it to a younger animal, and the younger one learns how to pull the weight by working next to the stronger, older animal, the veteran. And it works for pulling a wagon, and it works for Christianity too. Jesus says, I'm not telling you to do anything that I myself am not doing. I want to walk right alongside you, and in so doing, you're going to learn one step at a time. So step one was get in the right place, be around the right people. Step two is learn. Disciples of Jesus are learners, lifelong learners. And that means more than one thing. It can mean literally opening up a Bible and learning something. That's quite often what it means. But also means learning from other people's lives who have opened up their Bible and learned something. Finding people who are good examples in their faith and walking along next to them, even as they walk along next to Jesus. It's a whole lifetime spent of trying to imitate someone who knows what they're doing. And Jesus is that perfect someone. So as Christians, the second step to me in discipleship is learning. There's a reason that churches emphasize teaching. A lot of churches have Bible classes or special seminars or special programs or special small groups like maybe the one you're in right now. Why do we bother? Isn't it enough just to be a member of the church? And the answer is no. Discipleship is learning and growing, and everybody's supposed to be participating in that. And so one of the first things that's going to be asked of you when you start belonging to a church is that you start learning and growing. Because Christianity is about that. It's about growing and becoming more than you were yesterday by adding to what you know about Christ and how you know him. You belong, then you learn, and then step 3 is to serve. This comes from Matthew 20 through 28. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to him with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him for something. And he said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Say that these 2 sons of mine are to sit, one at your right hand and one on your left in your kingdom." Now we understand what's going on here. It's a mother who wants the best for her children. Problem is, that's not how discipleship works. Watch what happens next. Jesus answered, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" And they said, "We are able." He said to them, "You will drink my cup. But to sit at my right hand and my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." It's a really strange, cryptic little saying. But what he's basically saying is, you don't know what you're asking for. Because to follow Jesus comes with a cost. When he refers to drinking a cup, he's talking about partaking in the suffering of being a Christian, about serving and acting on the behalf of others and not just yourself. The mother was asking, "Make my sons important." But Jesus says if they're going to follow me, they're going to learn to be servants. And when the 10 heard of it, the other disciples, they were indignant at the 2 brothers. Right? They thought, "How dare you ask to be in charge of us?" But listen again to what Jesus says to the rest of the disciples. "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you. He says, I understand what you're asking. You all want to be in charge. Just like out here in these pagan countries, people can be in charge and sit on thrones. He says, that's not how discipleship works. Whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Christ says, I myself didn't come here to sit on a chair and be waited on hand and foot. That's not the kind of greatness he aspires to. And if you're going to be a disciple of Jesus, you need to understand the same thing. It's not all about you. Instead, it's about service. Disciples of Jesus are servants of others. One of the most toxic poisons that can enter a church is when people start thinking of the church as a distributor of goods and services, and they think, what can the church do for me? Maturity in discipleship is when you grow from just belonging and you grow into learning, and then you start doing. And not for yourself, but for others. When you start serving. Because it's in service that you begin to become the most Christ-like. If you followed Jesus around Galilee and Judea day after day after day, you wouldn't be following a man who was waited on hand and foot. You'd be following a man who constantly served other people. And so that's what I have to be. If I'm a disciple of Jesus, if I'm actually learning who he is, then I'm helping other people and serving them. So when I have a strategy, then when I want to set forward, you say to me, Ben, I want to become a disciple of Jesus and I'm not sure where to start. I would say, look at this list of 3 terms and figure out where you are. Maybe you're just at the belonging stage. Maybe you just don't feel like you belong anywhere and you don't know even where to go. The local church is a place where you get connected, where you literally start by just showing up. It's that simple. You just show up. It's not the end of the journey, but it is the start. You start being around people that can help you be more like Christ. You find other people who want to better themselves in Christ Jesus and find what Christ is doing in their life. Start there, belong there, show up. Maybe you've been going for a long time. I'm a churchgoer. I'm there every Sunday. I'm there all the time. But you don't know what to do next. Ask yourself, am I learning? Am I looking for ways to know more about Christ, to grow in my faith, and to find out how to be like him? You see, showing up, belonging, that's a great first step, but it can't be the last. Sadly, I can say I've known Christians who never get past that first step, who show up and never grow a bit in all their lives, and in terms of their faith, are at the same place at the end of their life as they were at the beginning. And that's sad. That's not the way it's supposed to be. We grow and we learn. If you've been learning and you say, I feel like I'm stuck, like I've plateaued and I don't know what to do next, find something to do. Ask the local minister or someone in your church, how can I serve? Where can I get involved? And you'll find that the process of belonging and learning continues in your service to other people. Belong, learn, serve. That's the strategy. And in the next several lessons, we're going to take each one of those terms and talk about how to do it better.